The Secretary has said in a press statement that the Biden administration is determined to get the word out to a new plan. So far, more than 4 million student loan borrowers have enrolled in this program, and Biden says that he touts it the most affordable ever. Of those 1 million new enrollees, people are going to get help, and getting the word out about income-driven repayment plans has been difficult. But it's not impossible. Interest on federal student loan debts started September 1st after the 3-year crisis ended, and now repayment loans and many borrowers are still confused because they have a new loan service and are encountering problems. But due to a significant number of borrowers returning to repayment service, the Department of Education has asked for individual resources from Congress. So let's see what can happen if they pass out the stimulus checks.
To address the House for 1 minute and extend and revise my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. St. Louis and I rise in support of our unions, including the 150,000 United Auto Workers nationwide and our local 2250 in Missouri's 1st District. Auto workers have built $250 billion in profits for the Big Three, for Ford, for GM, for Stellantis in the past decade, including $21 billion in the first 6 months of 2023. Yet workers are currently making 10% less in wages, real wages, that they made last year. Our workers deserve fair wages. Our workers, they deserve better benefits and safe working conditions. They deserve to be rewarded for their sacrifice.
Former president has said this about the fourth stimulus check. They want to pass it now. Over 200 lawmakers are expanding the relief to millions of Americans, and Democrats and Republicans are beginning to discuss a negotiation that could send this to you. But as congressional Republicans increase discussions on social programs, a trio of Democrats in the House have reintroduced legislation that would make permanent the expanded multi-child tax credit. Even the American Family Act has been reintroduced by Representative Rosa DeLauro and Susan DeBlayne. But the bill has been backed by over 200 House Democrats. The bill would expand the permanency of the expanded child tax credit as established in the American Rescue Plan. The expanded child tax credit would be expired at the end of the year, even as inflation continued to affect millions of Americans. The recently proposed bill would continue $300 monthly checks for children aged 6 and younger, while expanding the maximum credit to $250 per month and $3,000 annually. It is up from $2,000 under the previous policy. The bill also provides the full credit to children that have been left behind previously by revoking a rule limiting the refundable portion to $1,400 a year. It also eliminates the earnings requirement that previously excluded about a third of eligible children from the full credit. Representative DeLauro's office has noted that the expanded child tax credit assisted more than 60 million children and lifted nearly 4 million people out of poverty. And when they expanded and improved the child tax credit under the American Rescue Plan, it provided unprecedented economic security for families. The most recent monthly payments have helped people pay their bills and keep nutritious food on the table, afford school supplies, as well as manage mortgage or rent payments. Several Democrats have made it clear that this credit would be an investment to children and families. Advocacy groups have shown support for the bill's reintroduction. Even executive director of the Institute of Taxation said, "We are thrilled to see lawmakers prioritizing tax credits for the low and the middle income." The American Family Act comes amid Republicans' proposals to change the programs, including slashing funds for rental assistance and education programs. Folks, still, 2 states are ready to significantly ramp under the financial incentives for this bill to adopt renewable energy and EV vehicles under new laws that mimic the federal clean energy tax credits. The Minnesota lawmakers recently agreed on a $2 billion budget that dedicates hundreds of millions of dollars to cutting greenhouse gas. And what's clear about this is that Minnesota is going all in on this. About 900 million people, $900 million in Minnesota's next 2-year budget will pay for the tax credit. And because the credit is situational, not all families will be getting the stimulus money. Only certain households.
You know, first quarter of the 20th century, the poet Carl Sandburg described Chicago as a city of big shoulders. A city of big shoulders. He was describing the big shoulders of a working class American town who were building this city. At the same time, building the middle class. I'm here in Chicago today for the first quarter of the 21st century to talk about the economic vision for this country. The economy that grows the economy from the middle out and the bottom up instead of just the top down. When that happens, everybody does well. The wealthy still do it, everybody does well. The poor have a ladder up, and the wealthy still do well. We all do well. This vision is a fundamental break from the economic theory that has failed. Much of the technology and machinery that is used to make these chips was designed and produced in the United States. And by uniting our skills and our technological know-how, it allows the production of chips that are critical to both our countries and are essential sectors of our global economy.
There is a ton of news about the fourth stimulus check, Social Security benefits that you have to know, folks, so continue watching this video. You definitely don't want to miss out on this. Now, first of all, Americans are finally receiving their tax refund checks from the federal government, and this could mean several big, huge changes. Tax refund represents a source of joy for millions of households, and this year the average check is about $3,000. Now, according to the latest data, refunds are also used to pay down bills, start an emergency fund, or splurge on something special. Refund checks may be pleasant to receive, but they aren't free money from the government. Instead, they represent reimbursements from the IRS for taxes that workers overpaid throughout the year. Last year, that amounted to $360 billion in overpaid income, with 2 in 3 taxpayers receiving a check from the IRS. And because of the financial stakes, tax professionals and economists have engaged in a long-running debate about whether it's financially wise to get a tax refund or to have a close to a net zero tax return and get nothing back from the IRS. On one side of the debate, many experts cautioned that tax refunds represent interest-free loans that taxpayers give to the federal government. But on the flip side, other financial professionals say it may be better for some taxpayers to receive a refund because it essentially provides an enforced savings plan, which can be helpful for people who have trouble saving money. And according to experts surveyed by CBS News, it's a financially wise choice to get your money in your paycheck throughout the year. As of February 24th, the average tax refund was $3,000. That is a $3,000 interest-free loan that you are giving to the government. That is about $250 a month extra that you could add to your budget. That's similar to the monthly payments that many families with children received in 2021. This was money that was credited with reducing poverty and helping families afford childcare, transportation, and much more. Aside from using that money for household expenses, taxpayers could use that extra $250 to save for retirement. That's a big issue given that there's a massive retirement gap in the U.S., because with most Americans having far less than they'll need for a comfortable retirement. Other experts say that if you need the money on a short-term basis, sock it away in a high-interest savings account, which exceeds 4%. Now, by comparison, the IRS doesn't pay interest on tax refunds, which means you could be missing out on some extra money through a high-yield savings account or other investment vehicles. Almost half of Americans say they plan to receive their refund checks, and sometimes it's impossible to determine whether you get a tax refund. There are several governors and everybody that want to create state tax credits that provide low-income households with a little bit of cash this year. So if you're a person with low income, you could be getting stimulus, because Vermont's child tax credit provides $1,000 annually per child under 6 to families with adjusted gross incomes of up to $125,000. And now families with low or no earnings can receive its full value. Families earning between $125,000 and $175,000 receive a partial credit. In the state of New York, for instance, anti-poverty activist